question if people can see you and hear you.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Women of MENA in Tech Edmonton event. Just confirm that you can see us and you can hear us well before we start going. Okay.
Okay, that's
okay,
good.
Perfect. So we will start. Okay, thanks. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women of MENA in Technology Edmonton event. I hope you had a good time in the networking session. My name is Mina Aliani, and I'm a Women of MENA in Tech team lead in Edmonton. And I've been with the organization for about 1.5 years. My background is chemical engineering, and I work for Imperial Oil in Edmonton, Canada. Before we start the fireside chat, we just want to have a little background about the organization. So Women of MENA in Technology, which is previously known as Persian Women in Tech, is a 5-year non-profit organization, which is established in Silicon Valley in 2015. And currently it has over 35,000 active members, who are basically professional Middle Eastern and North African members. And Women of MENA in Technology is dedicated to celebrate and empower Middle Eastern and North African women in tech and STEM globally. So that's the background about me and the organization. Now I want to ask my team members to join me on the stage and introduce themselves. So for now we have Rayhane. Hi, Rayhane.
Hi, Minajan. Thanks for introduction. My name is Rayhane. I am a data scientist at University of Alberta. I've been with Women of MENA in Edmonton chapter since last October. Women of MENA in Technology has presence in 20 cities in US, Canada, and Europe, and has many different programs, including city events, membership program, and many more. You can visit our website at womenofmenaintechnology.com.
Perfect, thank you. And looks like our other team member probably has some technical issues, so she wasn't able to join us. So yeah, I don't want to hold anyone up. So we will go ahead and I introduce our moderator, and she will come up and then she will introduce our speaker, and then the panel will go on. So I will bring you up, Arzu. Perfect. Hi, Arzu.
Hi, everyone.
How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay, good. So I introduced Arzu. Arzu Saifur is our moderator for the event today, and she's a product management lead working and consulting in software companies of various sizes, from early stage startups to public companies. And she volunteers with PDX, Women in Tech, or Portland Women in Technology, which is an organization that focuses on strengthening the Portland community for women in technology. She also helped create the PDX WIT mentorship program, and currently serves as the Director of Innovation. And as a change agent for the tech industry, Arzu has been involved in the key advocacy efforts, including co-penning and an open letter, resulting in the removal of offensive tech billboards displayed in Portland's downtown core. Wow, this is amazing. Thanks, Arzu, for being with us today. I can't wait to hear you and Nassim talk. So I let you introduce, and if you have anything to tell us about yourself, please go ahead.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to you and the rest of the Edmond team for creating this event. I'm also excited to hear what our speaker has to say. So really looking forward to this. And And as Mina said, yeah, my background is, I actually also have a chemical engineering background and hardware engineering, which I rebranded into software product management, which is what I've been doing the last several years, product management, product development. So with that, I definitely want to, without further ado, bring in our speaker. I'm honored to present our speaker today, Nassim Moravej. Nassim is the co-founder of Sentient Tools Engineering, an outsourced R&D firm specializing in product development and support. Nassim holds an undergrad degree in electronics engineering and a master's of science in materials engineering. She built a strong foundation through experiences in multiple engineering and project management roles across North America and Europe, prior to forming the engineering startup firm in Edmonton in 2017. Nurturing her young business and her young family during the pandemic has been very effective in bringing her joy while not being able to travel or swim right now. Welcome, Nassim. She can join us on the stage.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Arzu, for the introduction.
Hi, Nassim. Welcome. Excited for today. So we're talking today about making your invention idea into reality. And we're doing that. Tonight's discussion is from the concept from the perspective of concept evaluation. To give everyone just a little bit of a background into what we are talking about tonight, we all have seen we're in an era right now where innovations and product development are shifting from these large corporations to individuals starting their own company. So it's important for us to discuss how founders go about making an idea into reality. What are their initial considerations to assess the initial idea? How do they secure funding? What challenges do they face? WoMENAIT and Technology Edmonton created this event so we can walk through these early decisions that a successful founder has made and the advice that she has for future entrepreneurs who want to embark on the same journey. So as we're getting started, before we go into any questions for Nassim, we wanted to get a feel for from the audience what everyone's interest is in this topic. If we do have, Mina, the poll, if we could launch that for everybody now. One moment. While we're doing that, if everyone wants to jump into the event chat and include what city you're dialing in from, and let's see, if we don't have the poll going, we can also include any info about what interested you most in the topic tonight. Be it that maybe you want to start your own company, you're interested in innovation in general. Some of you might be at a startup, which makes you think about what the initial concept evaluation is. Perhaps if you're in university or R&D, maybe you want to learn more about this area. All right. I don't poll, so if we haven't, so feel free to jump into the chat if you want to just type those questions, the answers to any of those questions. And also we'll dive into the questions for Nassim now, but if you have any questions, please drop those into the event chat and then we'll try and answer them as we go or right after our fireside chat. We'll ample time for Q&A or also a networking session afterwards if you want to ask Nassim directly. So maybe we can get started and let Nassim take us away. How about we start off with, how did you come to start your own business?
I was working with my business partners at a Fortune 500 company for about 10 years. When the downturn came in 2017, the company decided to move the whole R&D group to US, and we weren't interested in moving. So we turned and we all got laid off. So we turned the unfortunate event into an opportunity and started Sentient Tools. We care to provide high quality Canadian-made products, and without the bureaucracy of a large organization, we can deliver products very quickly and efficiently.
Perfect. Can you also tell us a little bit more about what Sentient Tools does?
Yeah, we are engineering focused, and product development is the core of our business. You can think of us as the outsourced multidisciplinary R&D group. So if your company needs to create has a new need has a problem to solve and doesn't have the resources internally, you can come to us and we can take you from ideation and concept evaluation all the way to commercialization process. We can support, sometimes we even support the product supply after the commercialization and help our customers that way as well. We are nimble and creative thinkers who use technology to solve problems. And we also help with efficiency and process improvements that has come up as well. I can give you some examples of some of the projects we've worked on. For example, we made a pressure sensor, a very high temperature pressure sensor that worked at 500 degrees C. That's not something you can just buy off the shelf. The client needed it. We figured out a way to make it happen, delivered the prototype. And another example is when we designed shock tools and jar tools for downhole drilling application, and we patented the new designs for the client and signed off on those. We get all sorts of different interesting projects, from software development and app development to the end-to-end, like the pressure sensor that was from design of electronics, hardware, and all the way to user interface for the readings. We also have our own products. We are currently launching the pilot fleet of our downhole data logger, environmental data logger. We call it the Recon family of products. It comes in many different shapes and sizes, and it's used in oil and gas industry and also in mining. And since we are a multidisciplinary team and the principles of engineering applies in many different industries, we work in many different industries. Two of the other products that we are scheduled to go commercialization Q1 of 2022 are the mask making machines, the fully automated, designed and made in Canada medical grade masks machine, and also a grain sensor monitoring system that notifies the farmer if there is spoilage in the grain storage and silos. As you might have noticed, there's no typical project, and it keeps it interesting. It's always something new. Really like it that way.
That's amazing. It sounds like you also kept very busy the last year and a half through the pandemic, if you're launching a ton of products upcoming.
Definitely, yes.
What about both with you and in general, how do you come up with new ideas, either for a new product or for a new business?
Mm-hmm. I don't think there is a specific recipe to follow to come up with new ideas, but you do need to have the right ingredients in place. And I think those ingredients are knowledge, experience, and having an open-minded approach. You have to think of the solution without being stuck on how it was done before. And most importantly, we must create a collaborative environment that ideas are shared and built on. So my favorite quote is from Anish Kapoor that says all ideas grow out of other ideas. So we often have brainstorming sessions here when we are dealing with a new problem on hand, and it's very interesting to see how things build up, and someone has an idea of how to solve the problem, and then from that, many new great approaches come up from other individuals in the meeting, and definitely the collaboration is the way to go.
By the way, I will say thank you, Nadia and Stephen, for jumping into this chat. If everybody else wants to dive in there or ask any questions, please feel free. Nassim, as you were mentioning collaboration just now, when it comes to making that idea, what about how important is the team? What do you start creating an idea by yourself? Is it more important to start forming the team first and come up with the idea together? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say it depends. Depends if you have an idea. I guess it all starts with the problem. First, you have to find the problem that you're trying to solve. And then as we probably talk more about how to evaluate your idea and how to go about with it, there are certain aspects of it that you need to evaluate. And there's certain expertise and experience you need in the area. For example, if it's going back to the sensor design, you need to have someone who understands how that could work to be able to help with the coming up with the idea. And if you don't have that all of that expertise yourself, you definitely want to put a team together.
All right. How about when you now, let's say you have that idea, what do you do with the idea? What should you do? How do you decide if you should proceed or not?
Mm-hmm. I think you have to ask yourself if it's an idea or it's a wish. The idea contains a specific solution but if it's a wish, it identifies the problem that needs to be solved. For example, stopping global warming is not an idea, it's a goal, it's a wish, it's where we want to get to. And unless you have a specific way of how you can implement that solution to solve that problem, that would be the idea, if you have that specific way. We were once approached with someone who had an idea of creating CO2 reduction stations around the city. And the request was for partnership. The idea was from this individual, and the development would be on us, and he wanted a 50-50 partnership. I just want to know from the audience, how many of you think this is a great idea? And you can put it in the chat, or I guess you can't raise hands with.
Yeah, if everyone wants to type in the event tab at the top under chat, we could see it in there.
What do you think, Aris, John?
I'm curious to, I mean, it sounds like an interesting idea, but yeah, for Mina is saying the idea itself is amazing. I'm going to agree with Mina on that. I'm curious what your firm did with it.
What if I tell you that when we asked how he proposes these stations would reduce and capture CO2, he had no idea. Pun intended. If you look at it, this was only a wish to say, okay, how about we have like these boxes around the city that would capture CO2? And then we say, how? There's no solution actually found. So also, there was no indication for market assessment or the need for such solution specifically in this way. And if the city of Edmonton ever wanted to invest in such stations, So I would say what you need to do with an idea first is to assess it. And there are three main questions you need to ask yourself. Does it make technological sense? Look at feasibility. How possible is it? Is the technology doable? And if you don't know, what needs to be done to answer that question? For some novel ideas and technologies, feasibility study is a must, and you need to spend the resources to actually get it to a more proven stage before you can proceed. And then the second question is, does it make sense? Does it make business sense? Is it desirable? Is it something that everyone wants to buy? What problem is this idea solving? What is the market paying? And would anyone pay for it? And then the third question is whether does it make financial sense? Like what will it take to bring this idea to life? How long is it gonna take? How much is it gonna cost? What are the risks involved in development? What would the product cost be? And if someone would be willing to pay that to get rid of that market pain or their pain. And also you have to see if the value that's earned by using this new idea jives with the cost, and see if it's worth proceeding with.
Awesome. So you mentioned, so the three areas you mentioned for the assessment: technological, business, financial, to do that for the initial evaluation. What if I have let's say a business background and I don't have the technological or financial know-how? How do you recommend I go about getting that part of the assessment or that part of the information into my assessment?
You can, if you don't have the expertise, you definitely want to talk to someone who does. And then every time you bring in someone, an advice for an area that you don't know, definitely it's more investment that you're putting in or shares that you're giving up. There are also consulting firms that you could hire to do market research. There are a lot of resources out there that I know. For example, in Alberta, you can get an initial patent search done through NRC and at no fee. So that can give you a good idea of what's out there, how much space in the IP world you have in terms of operation. And there are some resources that through NRC and some organizations and Business Link, for example, is another one that can help you find some of that information. But if you really need a technical assessment, that you need to get a third-party engineering, and we've done that for some clients too. You can do feasibility studies and do a small research project. And sometimes universities actually could partner with you for such stages.
Ah, I see. I was going to say, I definitely agree on the software product development side. Every single product or feature launch that we have, we first do that feasibility assessment with engineers just to figure out, is this even something that we can go ahead and do? And then Hania is asking about links. We can potentially prepare those and send those and ask them if you have them available. Otherwise, we'll find a way to do it.
I have the names available, but I can put the links together for sure.
All right. How about how much is an idea worth? What's the value of an idea?
So there are multiple factors that play in determining what's the value of an idea. more questions. One is there a barrier to entry? And you can look at that to see how difficult is it to develop this idea? How difficult is it to protect it? Or in other words, can someone else come and copy it and make it easily? That affects the value of your idea. Another factor is how useful is the idea? Like the problem that it's solving, how much time and money it's saving for the people who would be using the idea. Another factor we should keep in mind is the risk level. At the very beginning of the ideation stage, if it's completely out of this world, new technology, new market, the amount of risk that someone would take to invest in your idea is huge. So the value of your idea is less. But as you go through the different stages and you get your feasibility done, your concept is proven, there's more value now because the individual who's investing in it is taking less risk. Once you have the prototype, once you have it lab tested and field tested, these are all different steps that you can take to increase the value of that idea. But in general, ideas are nothing without execution. You can think of, there's a book called Anything You Want, and the author in the book refers to the idea as a multiplier factor. So you can think of the execution as the value and the idea as a multiplier. For example, an awful idea could have a multiplier of -1, or a weak idea can have a multiplier of 1. A brilliant idea can have a multiplier of 20. And then you can say, if there's no execution, that's worth $1. And if there's a brilliant execution, that's $10 million. So now if you have a brilliant idea and no execution, it's worth $20. But if you have a brilliant idea and brilliant execution, now you're talking great value. So it's how much work that goes into it that increases the value of the idea. It's like a seed. One seed doesn't have as much value as once you plant it and the harvest.
Oh, that's such a great analogy. I was thinking of a lot of early stage or founders that have an idea and they're really reluctant to share it. I've heard time and time again that the exact what you're saying I love is that it's all about the execution. And if you trap an idea in your head and you don't get that feedback and figure out how you're going to go about what team you form and how to go about through that process, the idea is nothing.
It is important to protect your idea as you have the details figured out. And at that stage, you should have enough details to be able to get your patent or provisional patent in place. So your idea is protected. And then you go into more discussions.
And then go into that
publicly, yeah. As you go through the execution.
Yep. Definitely that. Don't spill all the
all the beans.
That's true. What about the next part that that someone would think about is the product development part. How long does that take?
Okay, so to figure out how long it takes, you need to look at the complexity of what you're making. And an easy way of looking at that is the number of unique components. So if let's look at a screwdriver. I have pulled some data. My engineering side kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
Stanley Tools Jobmaster screwdriver that has 3 parts. I just want to see from audience how long do they think that took, and what was the development cost for making the screwdriver. That's $6 sales price. Any 2 months?
Screwdriver.
10 months? A year? Longer? Shorter?
Gosh, I don't know the answer to. I wish I had cheated in advance and known, but I don't know. I'm tempted to say on the order of weeks, maybe a couple months.
Maybe 4 months, Mina's saying, or $1.25 of development costs. Is that like thousands of dollars or just like? Okay, so should I give? Maybe I'll go ahead with the answers. You might be surprised to hear it took 1 year and the development cost was $150,000. And the production investment, so once you're done with the whole development, there was another $150,000 to put the production facilities in place to actually provide that as a product. I've prepared, I don't know if I can share my screen or Mina Jung, can you share my plot?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Let me see how I can.
So what I did was I looked at data for multiple different items like the ice cream scoop, screwdriver, a roller blade, avalanche detector, printer, Roomba, Tesla, and some Boeing aircraft, and figured out the number of unique parts. And I got the data from the book written by Carl Urich. It's called Product Design Development. Aircraft, and figured out the number of unique parts. And I got the data from the book written by.
I think we have a double sound. Mina, if you don't mind, please muting.
Mina Jun, please mute.
I think we have a double sound. Mina, if you don't mind, please muting.
Mina Jun, please.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Okay, and so actually there is a comment that says it depends if the designer has designed a screwdriver or not before. It depends. It's a new screwdriver, so there are new unique features. That's what it's not replicating an old one and making a different size necessarily. It's a new idea of how to manage it, to develop it. And then, so I put those numbers together, and then you can see as the product complexity increases, the development cost and the number of people, the size of the development team also increases. I put this in logarithmic scale, and you can see there is a very good correlation and relationship between these. And what this really means is, and I also divided everything by the development time, so it's like normalized, because some of them, for example, the Boeing took development time for that was 7 years, versus for the ice cream scoop, it was 1 year. So I took time kind of out of this. You can see you need about $36,000 per part per year. That's like the minimum. And then that increases as you increase the complexity of the product you're designing. And then same with the size of the team you need to develop. However, you should keep in mind that if you throw lots of people at it fast, it doesn't proportionally go faster. Not necessarily. There is still manufacturing time, there is still testing time, there is, depending on the complexity and different levels of assessments you need to do throughout the product development process. No matter how many people you put on it, there's a minimum time for each project that you can't make it shorter than that. So more people doesn't necessarily mean proportionally faster.
Wow, this is so fascinating. How do you decide, I mean, for each of the projects in your firm, the size of the team that you apply to it?
We go through, we do take this into consideration, but we don't put like numbers in the equation and figure out the exact. It's more with experience. So we usually go with the, I break it down to small work groups. So take a big project, break it down into little bits and pieces, and then compare them to previous projects or based on experience, how long it took, what kind of skills we needed, if it was a prototyping, in terms of manufacturing, testing, what it took, and then basically assess it for every little chunk, and then we put all of that together, and then we have a project estimate before, and we do that for every project, whether it's like internal or it's for a client. That's the first step before we quote on anything. We look at in details what it's going to take to get this to the end. And if the risk level is high, and you might need multiple iteration of the prototype before it's to the, I guess, engineering release stage, then we would we basically revisit it after every iteration and plan ahead.
Oh, wow. And that includes that kind of assessment that you make includes for products that you've never worked on before. You can apply that same breaking it down to smaller pieces.
Yes, so you look at what are the modules. There's an electronic module. How complex is that? And then figure that out. Is there a software module? How complex is that? Break that down. There's a mechanical module. How complex is that part of it? And then also look at, is there new IP, is there new technology in each portion of these? And if you break it, you can break down anything into like small pieces, and then you can manage the small pieces and you put them back together. And that gives you the big picture.
I love it. It seems like such a systematic approach. On the software side, I will say engineering estimates are, I was told to always double it just so that you account for all of the extended or scope creep, other things that come into play that might make that timeline not as crisp as you'd expect.
Well, definitely the numbers that I put in my estimates are not what I get from the developers or the engineers. I hear what they have to say, and then I have a multiplier based on experience that I add to it, and it's been working out pretty good. Like,
I agree. That's one I've learned the hard way. So now I should have a very multiplier on there. This plot is great. What about as we think about product development, what are obstacles and challenges that you faced, or what do you think are some challenges?
I can summarize all the challenges in one word, and I think that's resources. You can think of the funding, time, talent. They all have there is obstacles and challenges for all those aspects.
Okay, I definitely want to dig into those. So you said funding. I definitely want to hear a little bit more on what funding challenges there are, and what resources have you tapped into, and based on your experience to mitigate that challenge.
It's kind of a chicken and egg situation. You need funds to bring your ideas to life and to make your first prototype or minimum viable product. But you need exactly that to gain trust and raise funds. So if you don't have a prototype or you don't have something to show, you can't, people can't trust that it works and invest in it. So that's when, and you could still do that. You could still have a great pitch and get people to join you, but you're giving up more of a bigger piece of the pie that you might want to share. And that's where I think that some of the government funding come into place. There are great programs that we have used and are available, I know, in Canada and in Alberta. Some of the ones we used are National Research Council, NRC, has a program called Industrial Research Assistant Program. It's IRAP. Alberta Innovate programs. There's MyTech. There's Western Diversification. There's also Engine. That they try to, that's a national program. They try to create a collaborative ecosystem, and you can partner with other companies. Going back to when you said, what if I don't have all the expertise? That could be one of the options, because you can find a matching company that has one of the expertise that you don't have, and vice versa, and partner with them and do the development together as a partnership. And Engine supports a portion of the cost. But we need to keep in mind that even for these applications, you need to have a solid business plan. You need to know exactly what's your plan, what's gonna, like, how much the development is gonna cost, and you should have done your homework. They're gonna ask about the market need, the assessment of, and then your projections for the years to come after even the project completion, because they want to make sure it's a good investment for them. Although it's a good investment for the country, because they're not getting anything directly back, but it's a good investment for the country. And then you also have to keep in mind that none of them cover 100% of your costs, and you need to show that you have other revenue or enough saving to be able to cover at least 50% of the costs yourself. So that's important to know. Also, there is a lot of paperwork, so be prepared to do all the paperwork for applications, need to talk to the right people. There's a lot of admin and reporting during the program as well. Yeah, and there is no free money. So, but sometimes you have more time available than cash, and that's when these make sense, or you can just make time by losing some sleep, as I do sometimes.
Oh my, the work of a founder.
Yeah.
These excellent resources also will maybe after the Q&A, we'll get those typed into the chat. So all the funding resources Nassim just shared, we'll get those all out as well. Previous one that we were asked about. So so you said funding, then it was time. Can you tell us a little bit more about time as a challenge, and what do you do to mitigate that?
Planning is very challenging for R&D. I mean, there is the word research in there. So with research, you have a hypothesis, and not all of them prove to be true. So it's very difficult to know how long something is going to take, and it's very difficult to say, okay, I'm going to come up with a new design, and it's going to take me exactly 3 hours to come up with that new design. It doesn't really work that way. So how you deal with that is by doing risk assessment. It's a must. You need to look at to see if what you're making is similar to an existing one, or is it, as we discussed earlier, does it involve a new technology? Is it the first time around that something like this is coming out? And then based on that risk, you figure out how much cushion you're going to put in your plans in terms of time and money. And then based on that risk, you can assume I'm going to have a minimum of 2 iterations or 5 iterations, or this will probably work the first time if the risk is low, right? And you always have to be ready to adjust your plans and pivot, because some of the things are not predictable, as we all lived through it last year. So if you have enough cushions in your plans, you can survive even through a pandemic.
Awesome. What about, and then you touched a little bit before on the team and talent. Tell us a little bit more about talent as a challenge.
Finding the right people is very difficult. You need to, it's one of my highest priorities when hiring, to have someone who has the right attitude and it's a good fit for personality with the team. But for product development to be successful, you need to have true core skills, and someone not only can carry the current project needs, but someone who can stay with your company for long term and be able to do R&D 5-10 years from now. So we always have to think ahead and see what are the next projects that we might be getting. What are the trends? Where is technology going? And make sure the people that you hire today have skills that can be developed in that area that you envision going as well. So to be able to, the challenge is to determining those skills that are not relevant today, but will be 10 years from now. And also to be able to keep them.
I find it so interesting. I feel like more often than not, you hear someone saying, we have a need right now. We need somebody to hit the ground running. And I love that you're future proofing it to say, what projects do we have in the years to come? And can somebody fill that, or can they fill that talent gap for something that we don't even have on our plate yet?
So we end up having a lot of people at Sentient, they have multiple expertise. So we have a mechanical engineer who also has a degree in computer engineering, and myself, materials and electronics. And so we have quite a few people that have expertise in multiple disciplines, and that helps some of that growth.
Yeah, definitely. What about shifting it slightly for those obstacles and others? What, from your experience, has been of those has been the most challenging for women? What have you faced?
In terms of business, honestly, that there hasn't been any new barriers that I haven't faced before. I've been a woman in dominated field of engineering, in male-dominated field of oil and gas, in male-dominated leadership groups. And as a mother of young children, I had to work and compete with younger single peers that seem to have unlimited time to even do electronics as a hobby. And you have to keep up with that. It's a very fast-paced field. So that has been challenging all along. And then a lot of, so the challenge is what might be given for a male, such as having your opinion heard or to be taken seriously and to gain trust, becomes something we have to work hard for. It's you have to prove that you're competent repeatedly and build a solid reputation. While that might be given for some male at earlier stages of their, I guess, career or business. I have faced many challenges and had many interesting situations, but I've been also lucky that I've had some very strong women and men that have believed in me and supported me. And yeah, it's interesting.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. And we're going to seamlessly transition right now into the Q&A portion of it. So please start putting your questions either into the chat. I said incorrectly in the event chat. Thank you to the Edmonton team for correcting it. It's over in the stage tab in the chat. Feel free to pop your questions into there. Definitely start asking them now. Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking Nassim a few more questions. I'm curious also as we're talking about the idea, how do you know when, so in terms of concept evaluation, now we've gone through the entire initial assessment, how do I know when to stop or continue working on an idea?
So it goes back to the same three main questions, in my opinion. You have at every stage of the process, as you gain more knowledge and you know more about what you've done and where you're going, you have to ask again, does it still make technological sense? Does it still make business sense? Does it still make financial sense? Because you always have to look back at your plan, see, this is where I thought I would be at this time. Am I there? If it took more or less, where do I stand now? And do those answers still apply? And have those, we have those systematically implemented at feasibility, completion of design, prototyping, lab testing, field testing. So we go through these at those stages regularly.
That's amazing. I mean, this far into your career, I'm curious, looking back now, what's your advice to your younger self? I didn't get a chance to see the poll results, so I don't know how many university students we have in here, but what about if you were talking with your younger self or any university students listening in, what's some advice you can share?
I would say when you're making decisions on your electives or co-op positions or summer jobs, or if you're even considering a second degree, think about your career options. Like when I went through the process, I studied what I really enjoyed, and I never thought twice in terms of learning all these things. Where am I gonna apply it? Where am I gonna get a job that would let me do these? I ended up, so I always just learned what I was interested in, and I ended up being very suited for microfabrications in MEMS. And I'm in Edmonton with this expertise, and there are only 2 companies that I could possibly work at. And after a year of working at one of these companies, I came to a realization that then what? What is the growth path? What am I going to do next? And I'm not willing to move. So I ended up stepping back and starting over in oil and gas industry. And I made some different decisions if I had kept the career path in mind. And I also encourage everyone to learn about multiple fields of engineering or and also multiple industries. I think a lot of the innovations is born when lessons learned from one field is applied in another.
Awesome. We have some things coming through on the chat. We'll shift to Dinesh. I see you are adding, I believe you're adding on to Nassim's previous comment on how much support federal gives entrepreneurs financially and administratively, such as approvals. Let us know if you have an additional question to add on to there. I'll jump into the second one in the meantime. Going back to the initial stages, do you need a business partner to start a business? And if yes, where do you find them? Also, as a woman, did you find it more difficult to do that initial networking to find the right people?
You don't need a business partner necessarily. Again, if you're assessing your idea and there is a core skills that you're missing and it's not something you can learn quickly, for example, that if you can't just hire an engineer to do some of the work for you, then you need a partner. And as a woman, to find, I was lucky because I was working with with my partners for many years. That relationship was there already, the trust was already built. So I didn't go through that to have to find a partner. But again, like, I recommend something like Engine program, or there are programs out there that basically do a match of companies with skills and who you're looking for to partner with. So you don't necessarily do a joint venture, but you help each other and you figure out the IP part of it. One of you owns it and the other one licenses it, or you come up with an agreement to make that work, and they help you with that. Another thing I want to highlight when we talk about business partners, you have to make sure you have a shareholder agreement in place that describes all the what if situations, basically. So if there is a disagreement later on, there is already a way to deal with it.
All right. And as a segue to your previous point, Nadia is asking, where can you gain the business skills needed for evaluating ideas in entrepreneurship? And I'm interpreting that from the perspective of if you're going to try and do a lot of that yourself, where do you gain those business skills to make those evaluations yourself?
I gained it through my work experience. You could go take programs, courses on in business, but I think that's the easiest way to learn that is like through your work experience. I worked in R&D groups all my career, so I saw how companies evaluated them. I saw how management took different aspects into consideration to decide whether they want to spend money on something or not. It doesn't have to be just your idea and your business. Even when you're working for another company, all companies go through these stages. So by being there and being involved, you can learn it. And also there are a lot of books on, I can give you some name of some books that you can read that gives you kind of an idea. Also, there is a research specifically for women in Alberta, Alberta women entrepreneurs. They have a lot of educational programs. They have a mentorship program that you can join, and that's what they do. They're a non-for-profit organization that supports entrepreneurs or those who want to be entrepreneurs. So that's also a great resource.
Awesome. Oh my gosh, I'll have to look into that. We'll share some of these resources. We have time for one quick question, and then I'm going to, if it's all right, I'm going to defer the last two questions related to funding and forming the engineering team to the networking session with Nassim, if you all are willing to ask that directly. But one more for the full group. What's been your favorite product that you've developed at Sentient, and why?
The mask making machine has been very interesting because it's so different than what I've ever dealt with before, because dealing with fabric is so different than dealing with steel. It's been very interesting, and because there is a lot of innovation and different approaches that we are taking. We have many brainstorming sessions for every module of it. So we've had the more brainstorming sessions we have, the more I like the project. And that's the one that's given us the most. So it's very interesting. I'm very excited about that one.
Sounds like you have the true engineering mind. You like to dig in on those details.
Yes.
All right. I think we're at time, a little bit over, and about to start the networking. I want to thank Nassim, and I know the Edmonton team will come back onto the stage. For everybody who asked some questions at the end, please do continue on the networking session to ask. You can always ask directly, or I imagine if Nassim, everybody can find contact information for you if they'd like to ask further. And then as we're shifting over into the networking, we'll try and add into the chat some of the resources that Nassim shared earlier.
Perfect. I just came up to just say thank you to you, Arezou and Nassim, for such a fluent conversation. I really enjoyed listening. So I hope that the audience also enjoyed. So yeah, I asked everyone to join the session, and we have 2 separate rooms for Arezou and for Nassim, and please go ahead and join their rooms and chit chat and ask them any questions that you have. So thank you again for being with us. So hopefully we see you in this session. And for going to the session, just click on the left tab, says session at the very end.
Okay.
See you.
Thank you.